Halloween 6: The Curse of Michael Myers is notorious for its troubled production and lukewarm reception. This attempt to give Michael a more complex motive than simply being evil was initially so maligned by test audiences that a second version was created and released theatrically. This one was a heavily altered version of the original producer's cut, where Michael's motives were still revealed but with less overt focus. Still, it bombed, and Halloween 6 was retconned out of the storyline as soon as the next sequel. But is it that bad? Does it have elements that actually allow it to stand shoulder to shoulder with the original classic? Well, that's why I do these videos, where I pointlessly rewind through movies from my past and point out 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses of those movies. It's my way of being objective. And without further ado, here's my analysis of Halloween 6: The Curse of Michael Myers, complete with the over-the-top editing style of the actual movie. That is literally the first shot of the theatrical version of this movie, so Halloween 6 is completely upfront about how blatantly flawed it is. And yet, when I think about Halloween 6, the first thing that comes to my mind is actually a strength, and that's Michael Myers. George Wilbur reprises his role from Halloween 4 with the taller, leaner Michael Lerner donning the mask also for the theatrical reshoots, and both stuntmen are fantastic in the role. From the moment he starts chasing his niece Jamie in the opening, there's a ferocity to this Michael that is levels above the previous incarnations, and it's best showcased in the brutal manner that Michael dispatches of Jamie 15 minutes into the movie. I have my issues with how gruesome this is for a character we love so much in Halloween 4 and 5, but this is Michael at his most sadistic, especially when he reaches his hands out like a callback to in Halloween 5 when he has that emotional connection with Jamie, and instead he just shoves her further down onto the farming equipment. It's next level, and the whole movie, particularly the theatrical cut, has a Michael who is far more brutal than he's ever been. I don't know what's worse, that when he swung that axe at poor Mrs. Strode, he did it with such force that it made it sound like she exploded, or that he causes Mr. Strode's head to actually explode, or that when he slits Tim Strode's throat, that he actually nicks him in the armpit also. Ugh. Michael is vicious in this movie, especially in all the parts in the Myers house. He's so menacing when he's stalking Kara here, and there's an argument to be made that this is as effective a portrayal of Michael Myers that we get in the entire series. I'm not entirely there, but I think it's incredible that the Shape is this impactful when the plot of the movie is actively trying to undermine him. Michael staring at people is bone-chilling in the original, because that comes across as a conscious decision he's made. It's way less effective when he's doing this because of some curse, or worse, when the producer's cut shows him several times to be motionless and basically looking like the most out-of-place henchman. The theatrical cut still has elements of this, but removes most of the cult shenanigans, which was a wise choice because I refuse to believe Michael was under the influence of a cult here. Another reason I don't want to focus on the producer's cut too much is I really don't want to get into the origin of Jamie's baby.
Michael, the baby is yours, isn't it? Isn't it, Michael?
I said I don't want to hear it! Let's get back to the Michael from the theatrical cut. He's no one's father in that version, and Michael is somehow more angry in this reshot finale than he was earlier in the movie. It's super entertaining, even when he's being Jason-like with a machete and running after a victim. Normally it would bother me to see Michael act out of character, but somehow, even though this whole part makes very little sense, it does come across that Michael is extra pissed at the Thorn Cult trying to control him, and I like that. And let me talk about Michael's appearance for a moment. They still haven't quite gotten the mask right, but this is way, way better than the garbage from Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. I mean, this is actually a legitimately good mask. But I really like how they give him a gray jumpsuit in this movie. No one ever talks about that, but I always noticed it, and I always think, hey, that's a neat touch. Maybe it touches on his shades of gray.
The baby is yours, isn't it? Isn't it, Michael?
Okay, me using that clip again when I said I wouldn't is a case study in how to make an incoherent piece of media. Another example would be Halloween 6: The Curse of Michael Myers, and the biggest weakness of this movie is how incoherent it is. Now obviously the bulk of this is because of the extensive reshoots when the original producer's cut met with some very negative test audience reactions to certain moments.
The baby is yours, isn't it?
Shut up, Kara. 2 versions of Halloween 6, a definite recipe for an incoherent movie. But in Halloween 6's defense, Halloween 5 had a terrible cliffhanger that no one thought through whatsoever and had no plans for how to follow it up. However, Halloween 6 compounds this by opening 6 years after that with no real explanation, and Jamie is just randomly giving birth during a super weird ritual, and then suddenly the chase is on.
Bloody
He's coming.
Jamie makes it sound like she was expecting this, but that makes me question, has Michael been chasing her the entire 6 years that she's been missing? Or has he been on a 6-year vacation now the chase has started up again? Like, why didn't he go after her while she was giving birth, when she was at her most vulnerable? This is just a very fragmented way to open the movie, and it doesn't help that Halloween 5 ended with Danielle Harris's Jamie in a completely different situation than Halloween 6 begins for J.C. Brandy's Jamie. It's like two completely different characters. And since Jamie in Halloween 6 doesn't have any character development or chance to interact with anyone, I never feel like this is actually Jamie. And so her over-the-top death doesn't hit me at all. Like, rather than feel like this was a disrespectful demise for a beloved character, I'm just thinking, ooh, that's a cool kill. Which is the wrong feeling to have for Jamie Lloyd's death. She's such an important character in this series. The producer's cut gives her character more dignity as she's only stabbed and injured by Michael. She's later shot in the head by the Man in Black, but at least we see Loomis grieving for Jamie. Regardless of the version, the opening with Jamie is confusing, and Halloween 6's lack of clarity continues onward. Michael is now after Jamie's son Steven, whom Tommy Doyle from the first movie is now protecting. Meanwhile, Laurie's relatives, the Strodes, have moved into the Myers house, which includes Danny and his mother Kara, who's played by Marianne Hagan, who I know best from that stupid clip I keep playing. Danny is hearing voices from the Man in Black, voices that are very influential on young children.
Michael heard a voice? It told him to his family.
Obviously, I changed that line from kill to and that's because no matter how much I'm trying to forget that plot line, I'm trying to justify why Kara would even think that. But whatever, Danny is being groomed to be the replacement Michael in both versions of the movie, and Tommy, played by Paul Rudd in his first role, helpfully provides exposition on what Thorn actually is.
The Thorn symbol is actually a constellation of stars that appears from time to time on Halloween night. Whenever it appears, he appears.
But if they were going to go for this Thorn plotline, which I don't actually like the plot, but if they wanted it to be coherent, they needed to really go for it. But instead, Tommy just has this scene where he tells Kara all of this stuff, Kara accepts it, and that's pretty much it for Thorn for the mid-portion of the movie. We never actually see Loomis learn any of this from Tommy, which is a big missed opportunity because that is like revelatory stuff for Loomis, like mind-shattering, like earth-shattering, not mind-shattering, but something is shattering there. But the Thorn plot is minimally explained, and the rest of the section is devoted to Michael killing the Strodes in his old home. This leads to this unfocused feeling, like these are tangential storylines, and you would hope that when they come together, they would merge beautifully. And for a moment they do. When Kara goes across the street to get Danny from where Michael is hiding, that is a great scene, and it has a fantastic chase that builds and builds and builds, and then it abruptly stops when Michael disappears for no reason. Wynn reveals himself as the Man in Black, and something happens to Kara?
Hello, dear.
This is one of the most ludicrous things a character does in a Halloween movie, more so because Kara was so resourceful just one scene ago. I think Tommy and Loomis are speaking for all of us here.
I feel like I've been drugged.
We have been drugged.
And the drugs keep on coming, because where did Michael disappear to in that last scene? Well, obviously this random hospital room in Smith's Grove, duh! The producer's cut handles this marginally better, because Michael stopped and reappeared at that cult sacrifice with Wynn and Kara. As stupid as it is that it takes Michael a full 30 seconds to react when Tommy interrupts the sacrifice, it at least explains why Michael would suddenly stop attacking. The cult was controlling him. The theatrical cut, though, just says, screw making sense, let's just do stuff. Dr. Wynn and his cronies prepare to do something in this operating room to Danny and Steven, but I don't know what it is. Dr. Wynn doesn't either, because this is all he has to say.
This baby, Jamie's baby. We are at the dawn of a new age, Sam.
This is all followed by Michael slaughtering all of the doctors, and I have no idea why. This is a cool scene, but does the Thorn curse just sort of wear off? Is there a Best Buy date for when to use Thorn? Like, I don't know why this actually happens, nor do I know what's going on in this green sci-fi room with all the syringes and test tube babies.
The baby is yours, isn't it? Isn't it, Michael?
What part of this climax makes any sense? Certainly not how Dr. Loomis's character arc finishes in the theatrical version, which would be Donald Pleasance's final role. There's a hasty edit of Loomis helping Kara and Danny escape, and then Loomis goes back in, and this is what we hear. What an anticlimactic ending for this iconic character. The theatrical version's usage of Dr. Loomis is my second weakness. Every time I watch this, Loomis feels like an afterthought. He was much more present in the producer's cut, but since the movie got studio mandated to remove as much of the cult material, Loomis's scenes were cut quite a bit, and sadly, Pleasance passed away before the reshoots. Granted, I can't imagine him being pleased with some of what went into the original version.
The baby is yours, isn't it? Isn't it, Michael?
But in the process of heavily modifying the movie after Pleasance's death, they make Loomis basically unimportant in this movie, which is a travesty. Loomis has no character arc in the theatrical version, and so at times it doesn't feel like a proper Halloween movie. We get one token scene of Loomis explaining Michael's evil to Kara's mother.
Contaminating his soul. It was pure evil.
But this feels like a relic from the earlier movies that is out of place in what's left of Halloween 6. Loomis doesn't get enough here. And same with Tommy. Tommy's an important character from the first movie, and he's played by Paul Rudd, but he doesn't really get any development. Yeah, he's like weird and eccentric, and that's probably down to some PTSD from the first movie, but the movie doesn't actually dive into that at all. It just has Tommy acting really weird and over the top, which eventually wears thin.
An accident.
What kind of accident?
Get me a doctor now!
And I don't really buy that Tommy was able to find all this information on Thorne. He offers up a flimsy explanation at one point.
For years I've been convinced there must be some reason. Some method behind Michael's madness.
But I think this would have been better if they had just gotten rid of Tommy and replaced his role with a meteor one for Dr. Loomis. This would have been a great character arc for him to discover all of this, and it would have been a memorable final role for Donald Pleasance. However, that might have also slowed the movie down, which could be problematic considering my second strength for Halloween 6 is how propulsive it is. I wouldn't call it well-paced. That implies that the story flows naturally and smoothly, which it absolutely does not. But I'm never bored watching Halloween 6. The opening with Michael killing Jamie is visceral and does a good job of splicing in exposition as needed. And then when we get to the Myers house portion of the movie, even though things are kind of manically edited, the movie just keeps rolling. Even in the climax when nothing is making sense, the movie just keeps moving. It never bores. Maybe that's why it doesn't bother me that Michael is basically running in this scene, because it's in line with the velocity of the rest of the movie. But there's a downside to that velocity, and it's in that MTV style editing and music that is so freaking annoying. This is so overproduced. Like, what kind of storytelling is it to repeatedly have flash cuts to Jamie in a gurney? Why? You're actively trying to ruin the atmosphere, which is key in making a Halloween movie feel like a Halloween movie. And yet somehow Halloween 6 nails that fall aesthetic so well during the first half of the movie that the atmosphere is my third strength. The way Michael moves in and out of shadows in the barn scene with Jamie like a grotesque scarecrow is super moody. Then there are moments that director Joe Chappelle builds tension through a malfunctioning laundry machine or a chase between these clotheslines. And in the few scenes where Kara searches the Myers house, once when she's unaware of Michael and once when she's going to save Danny from Michael, Chappelle shows great patience with these long, lingering still shots that remind me of moments in the original Halloween. Meanwhile, there are several establishing shots during the daytime and an atmospheric trip to the Haddonfield Town Festival that really makes it feel like autumn in the Midwest.
Marvelous celebration. People danced, and they played games, and they dressed up in costumes.
I don't think a single Halloween movie nails the fall feel quite as well as Halloween 6. And that's the frustrating part about this movie. There's so many legitimate bits of brilliance here that it just sucks how it's a movie that never figures out what it wants to be. So thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I am going to finish the Halloween series at some point on this channel, but I'm going to take a little bit of a break and do a couple of Indiana Jones videos because I've just been jonesing for some Harrison Ford and Steven Spielberg. So please be excited for that. Is that something people say? I don't know. Here's a little preview of one of those videos.
The baby is yours, isn't it?
Wrong clip!